Lane Kiffin is instituting a pretty massive change this fall camp.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast around. I am your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. On today's show, we will react to Locked On's top 100 college football players, and yes, 2 Rebels made the list. Suntarine Perkins, the returning SEC sack leader, is honestly way too low. And wide receiver Deshaun Stribling made the list as well. He's a surprise inclusion, but we'll tell you why it makes sense. Also, Lane Kiffin is making a pretty major change to fall camp, something we flagged a year ago: more physicality and more hitting. After 3 one-score losses last season, it's a shift that could pay big dividends. Plus, a last-minute roster addition just before camp opens. What does it mean and who benefits? All of that and more right now on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. We're free and available in all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thanks again for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day. And a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is, and that is the most fun way to follow Ole Miss. So do us a favor, like the show, subscribe to the show, comment on this video. It costs absolutely nothing, but keeps all of these videos free. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, is ready for you. So Lane Kiffin, in his press conference after practice yesterday, it was pretty interesting. Lane Kiffin admitted that this fall camp is going to have more hitting, and it's going to be a much more physical camp. And we called last season, we always talked about the kinder, gentler fall camp that they were doing last season. And it basically jumped up to bite Ole Miss with losing 3 one-score games. Football is a toughness game. And whenever things don't work out the way you expect them to, they always resort to more physicality, more hitting in fall camp. This is normal. This is football for the last 100 years coming through in fall camp. But Lane Kiffin did confirm that this camp will have more hitting, more physicality. Those tight one-score games that Ole Miss dropped against Kentucky, against LSU, and against Florida. Again, I talk all the time. Ole Miss had a 12-0 roster, and they went 9-3 with it a year ago. There's really no way to get around that. They had one of the best rosters in the entire country. We had Brett Ciancia from Pick Six Previews on the show just yesterday, talking about how Ole Miss had the second best roster in college football a year ago, and Ole Miss went 9-3 with it. And a lot of that has to do with analytics, who I always use it as a whipping boy at the end of every single morning podcast. But it also happened in fall camp, where the kinder, gentler fall camp was brought into the sphere, and everybody was cheerleading. Is like, hey, we're doing something new and different. It's going to be fantastic. Yeah, see, football, you don't have to hit all the time. You can be kinder and gentler on the field. Well, at the end of the day, you saw the worst rushing football team that a Lane Kiffin team has been. I mean, that's a fact at Ole Miss. I mean, that's just the way it is. Ole Miss lost every one-score game on their schedule. All of the stuff that a tough fall camp is supposed to prepare a team for came through last season. Listen, I'm not saying that Ole Miss lost everything because of the fall camp. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that that contributed, that they weren't quite as physical as they want it to be. Everybody talked about it. Even Nick Saban, whenever they were doing the preview show, talked about how Ole Miss on the offensive line had the players to compete. And when it came to running the football, they could not do it. They did with Quinshon Judkins a year before, but they could not do it last year, to the point where, what is it, a fifth string wide receiver was starting at tailback in the biggest football game in Ole Miss's history. So Lane Kiffin making this change, I applaud. Thank you very much for that. it gives people a chance to kind of turn the page, that lessons were learned from a year ago, where a football coach seeing what's going on, you know that building camaraderie and the use of the transfer portal, the contact, the physicality, all of that in fall camp are going to be very important. It should be interesting to see. Ole Miss plays Georgia State in the first game. You're not going to tell anything in that game running the football. Ole Miss should be able to run the football on them with anybody. They ran the football in their non-conference schedule last year to the tune of about 250 yards per game with Henry Parrish Jr. But the second week of the season at Kentucky, Ole Miss has to run the ball in that game. Against Arkansas, Ole Miss has to run the ball in that game. And the way you do it is through physicality. We will look at rumors and things on the offensive line. Right now, their shirts and shorts, there's not a lot you can glean from the offensive line other than who is playing where. The fact that Jaden Williams is lining up on the right side. He's the blind side protector of Austin Simmons. Diego Pounds. We'll find out where Patrick Kutas ends up, whether or not Bryson Sanders has the medal. But this not so kinder, gentler fall camp for Lane Kiffin, it's going to be a way to make Ole Miss more of a blue-collar team. Lane Kiffin talked about in his press conference yesterday how he wanted to be more of a blue-collar team this year. And it makes sense. It makes all the sense in the world when you look at the fact that you don't have Walter Nolan on this roster. You do not have Princely Amon-Mielen on this roster. You do not have Trey Harris on this roster. You do not have Jackson Dart on this roster. Ole Miss is naturally, talent-wise, going to take a step back. But it's just like I told Brett Ciancia from Pick Six Previews. Last season was a 12-0 roster. A step back doesn't mean that you're going to finish worse than 9-3. It doesn't. Because last season they finished worse than what should have happened. They had a 12-0 roster. So a step back for this team could be that they max out at 10 wins. Could be. But the playoff is absolutely on the table for Lane Kiffin and this Ole Miss Rebels offense and this Ole Miss Rebels defense. The physicality in fall camp. I think you are going to see a different team when the season starts because of the physicality of fall camp. There's black jerseys all over the place. They mean different things. They're not necessarily for injured players. They could be for load management, the whole 9 yards. But the physicality in fall camp, if Ole Miss can avoid the injury bug, because that is what everybody's afraid of, is the injury bug in fall camp, Ole Miss has a chance to be pretty good. And at the end of the year, if Ole Miss is in the playoffs, we will look directly back to Lane Kiffin having a much more tough fall camp as the reason that Ole Miss got there. The reason they were able to beat Florida at home. The reason they were able to beat South Carolina at home. The reason they were able to beat Oklahoma on the road or LSU at home. It's going to be because of toughness. They could not run the ball really against the LSU Tigers in Tiger Stadium, and that caused a little bit of a cauldron to happen. This is an opportunity for Ole Miss to kind of move past that. This is a way to turn the page. This is a way to get tougher, if you want to look at it that way. But it also is going to affect the mentality of the football team. They want a blue-collar team. You have to be able to run the football. You have to be able to be willing to scrap, and you have to be very physical at the point of attack. There are several offensive linemen that came in that are pretty physical players. So we'll see how it looks whenever they put on the shoulder pads a little bit later on in fall camp. It should be really exciting, honestly. If we're going to be real about it, it should be exciting. You know, there's some intriguing roster moves that are happening just as Ole Miss gears up and starts fall camp. And yes, we noticed. We break down what they could mean next. You know, when I'm on top of my hydration, I notice everything works a little better. My energy, my mood, my focus, even my skin. But getting fluids every day isn't always easy. That's why I've been loving Drip Drop, especially in this heat. Drip Drop is a doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration drink. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half of the sugar of the leading sports drink. My go-to flavor is orange. And I live in Florida, so it should be orange, right? It's a game changer after my daily walk in this intense Florida sunshine, and it keeps me feeling great. Right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners $20, 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com and promo code Locked On College, all one word. That's dripdrop.com, promo code Locked On College for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. Well, even harder. All right, fall camp started a couple of days ago, honestly. And one thing that really noticed was the roster got worked the night before. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We'll talk about some player jersey numbers and a jersey number competition, if you will. We'll talk about that in this segment as well. But we'll start off with Israel Solomon, a player out of Hawaii who transferred to Colorado. He's from the IMG Academy. He's transferred to Ole Miss. He is a defensive back. His number is somewhere in the 40s. So I don't think he is a player that you need to count on for this season for playing time. He got into camp a little bit too late. He's still deep into the playbook. I think he might be able to help some on special teams, but Israel Solomon, he should be able to help in other ways. I think, punt team, kickoff coverage, stuff like that. He has a chance to earn a spot on the field. I'm not expecting him to play that much in the secondary for Ole Miss. The secondary at the first fall practice, Kapina Gushikin, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. If I'm not, I apologize. And Wadette Williams in the defensive backfield. No Sage Ryan. No Jalen Braxton because of a black jersey. There's some injuries going on. Maybe I don't know exactly how that's being handled, but those are the two players. One of the rumors that we have about Gushikin is length, height. Is somebody like Caleb Odom going to be willing to take advantage, going to be able to take advantage of a sleight of frame safety? Good player. Obviously, he's making plays if he is in the start of the defense at the start of fall camp. But the thing to keep an eye on with him is how he adapts to somebody that has a little bit of physical advantage on him. He comes from Washington State. Washington State, good program. Everything's pretty cool, but Washington State is not the Southeastern Conference. The wide receivers that he is facing at Washington State is not the level that he is going to be facing in week 2 and week 3. Kentucky and Arkansas. We're not even talking about Georgia and Texas and all those guys. We're talking at the bottom of the league. So it will be important for Gushikin to match up. And if he can handle it, that is one of the main questions of fall camp. Again, the Jalen Braxton thing, how will he acclimate to that side of the ball, that position? I think he could be a really good free safety. Pete Golding is known for taking cornerbacks and moving them in the very back part of the defense. They did it with John Saunders. John Saunders was one of the more dominant pieces for Ole Miss on that defense, on a very dominant defensive unit. Trey Washington was also very good. But with what happened in Memphis, there is a cascade effect that has to happen. TJ Banks was probably penciled in. He was going to start at that slot corner that John Saunders played a year ago. So we'll have to wait to see what that is like. Of course, they don't talk about anything like that. So we'll have to wait and see a little bit. So Gushikin, paying attention to him. Sage Ryan, paying attention. Jalen Braxton, paying attention. Wadette Williams, paying attention. That defensive backfield will be of the utmost importance for Ole Miss. Now, the quarterback position is kind of interesting, kind of fun to think of. You look at the roster, Ricky Fletcher gets number 9. That's the number that Trey Amos wore a year ago. And the rumors coming out of the football office is he had a very good summer. And they think very highly of him to the point where they moved Jalen Braxton. if there was nobody to play that position, Jalen Braxton wouldn't have been moved. He would have been the dominant corner. Cornerback is more important than free safety if you don't have a corner. If you have a corner, free safety is really, really important. But if you don't have a corner, they're going to take the bird in the hand, if that is making any sense. Jalen Braxton, if he moves back to the back end of the defense, Ricky Fletcher slides in to that shutdown corner position that Trey Amos played a year ago. And on the other side of the field, you have a pretty interesting competition that is developing between Chris Graves and Antonio Kite and those guys. And the coaches, by the way, we talk all the time. If you listen to this show probably for more than 15 minutes, you know how I feel about single-digit numbers. It's the most valuable real estate on a football team, and that is the way that you can tell exactly how a coach feels about a skill position player. Does he get a single-digit number? How close is he? That type of stuff. That's how you know that they really like Caleb Cunningham. They really like Harrison Wallace. They really like Deshaun Stribling. If you look down the list, Caleb Odom getting a number 4, that's a big deal. The single-digit numbers are very good real estate. One thing you notice when looking at the roster, and this is one of the reasons I think this rumor might have a little bit of validity to it, is the number 8, Daquan Wright's number. He's the offensive number 8. Well, defensively, it's still out there. And the other corner position, are they competing for that number? Because I've heard rumors that whoever wins the other side competing for it is going to end up there. Now, it could be completely wrong and the guy's just making all of that up, but it will be interesting to follow that one way or another. That number 8's available and the other cornerback position is going to be real. Whoever changes that number, you probably should look into that. We know at the end of fall camp, there's usually a jersey number, a roster update that happens with players looking at that. So there's some interesting news and notes happening inside fall camp at Ole Miss. And I'm honestly pretty impressed about where they could end up. In our final segment, Locked On has released its top 100 players list, and 2 Ole Miss Rebels made the cut. We'll tell you who's on it and give our full reaction to it next. Locked On released their inaugural college football top 100 players ranking list. 2 Ole Miss players made the cut. They would have had a lot more last year, but 2 made it this year. Suntarine Perkins and Deshaun Stribling made it on the list. Now, when you look at this in this show, I kind of kept the overlays to a minimum, but in this segment, bear with me. We're going to have to do it. In the top 10, Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs at Ohio State. Dylan Stewart, that is absolutely ridiculous. Dylan Stewart had 6 sacks a year ago at defensive end. Half of the sacks, basically, of Suntarine Perkins. Somehow Dylan Stewart made it to number 3 on this list. Jeremiah Love, the running back at Notre Dame. Ryan Williams at Alabama. Did you hear he could vote now? Cade Klubnik at Clemson. Anthony Hill at Texas. Garrett Nussmeier at LSU. Colin Simmons at Texas. And Keldrick Fault, another defensive lineman, in the SEC. There's a whole bunch of people that are ranked ahead of Suntarine Perkins that have no business being ranked ahead of Suntarine Perkins, honestly, if we're going to be real. Dylan Stewart, everybody talks about his NFL motor. He doesn't have the sack numbers. You don't put all of these players over the leading returning sack man in the Southeastern Conference. It's absolutely nuts. So let's just look at it. Suntarine Perkins, number 26 in the country. This is the tier that has Sam Levitt, DJ Lagway's there. These are good players. Don't get me wrong. They are genuinely good players, but Suntarine Perkins should be higher than number 26 in the country. I personally had him, whenever I filled in my ballot for this, the number 8 player in the entire country. because of the stats that he put up, because of what he does to a game. I think Walter Nolan and Princely and Monmielen and those guys on the defensive line are getting way too much credit over Suntarine Perkins. This is almost disrespectful to have him in the top 26. He is a top 10 level player, and it's not particularly close. The numbers back it up. The effect that he has on the game. You look at other teams actually scheming of where they're going to be, trying to get away from Suntarine Perkins. It's an absolute travesty that he is the number 26 player and not much, much higher. It's ridiculous. I need to calm down just a little bit, but Suntarine Perkins is one of the genuine best players in the entire country. He is a genuine candidate for SEC Defensive Player of the Year. And if you look at this list, he is at best 7th, 8th on the list. You look at the people that ranked them for the All-SEC. We had Pick Six previews on the show yesterday. Put Harold Perkins in above Suntarine Perkins. Harold Perkins on this list, number 100 in the entire country. And it was because of injury. There's some weird stuff when it comes to people's opinions. But if you want to get outraged over anything, it is that Suntarine Perkins is not as high as he should be. Suntarine Perkins has a legit chance to be SEC Defensive Player of the Year. He does. And with the responsibility that he's going to have on this defense and the way that Pete Golding is going to use him, he has a chance to be a breakout player. But number 26 for an Ole Miss player, I guess that's a good number, but Suntarine Perkins should be a lot higher. Now, when I did this and I saw what was going on and the ballot was happening, I assumed that it was going to be one little old Ole Miss player on the entire list. And honestly, I didn't think they were going to put anybody else on the list. And that's weird to think of. There's a little Ole Miss syndrome. When you look at the top 10 and who lands on it, it's a lot of brands. Ohio State, Notre Dame, Alabama, Texas, LSU, Auburn. People that you would expect to be pretty good at what they do over what you have been told. They're really good at also promoting their player. But there was one surprise for Ole Miss. Ole Miss got a second player in, and that was right here at number 85. Deshaun Stribling made it on the list. And honestly, he belonged on the list. Because if you look at it, in PFS, he dropped 3 passes in several hundred thrown at him last year. He was very, very good. He was nearly 1,000-yard receiver in a quarterback challenged offense at Oklahoma State. Deshaun Stribling was the first Twitter pick of fall camp for Ole Miss, and Austin Simmons throwing the ball back shoulder and him out wrestling Chris Graves to get the ball. Deshaun Stribling belongs on this list. Caden Lee, as we've talked about in the offseason, has a real chance to lead the Southeastern Conference in receiving this year. He has the chance to have that type of year. But the most dangerous weapon on Ole Miss's offense may be Deshaun Stribling. And also depends on if Caleb Odom picks up the playbook playing tight end in the middle of the field as well. There's a lot of weapons for Ole Miss on the outside, and Deshaun Stribling is going to benefit from that. You can't necessarily double team Deshaun Stribling because Caden Lee is going to be right beside him. Caleb Odom is going to be on the field. Daquan Wright is going to be on the field. Harrison Wallace can run by you. He will be on the field. Double teaming a wide receiver player is going to be difficult for any team playing Ole Miss. And Deshaun Stribling, he has a lot of the same attributes that Trey Harris had. He's not Trey Harris, okay? I'm not calling him Trey Harris, but he has a lot of those attributes. And because he is such a contested catch maker, because he is an elite route runner, he was clocked at 21 miles an hour just recently. He can really run. He has the chance to be a true weapon on the outside. And Lane Kiffin kind of let it slip that outside wide receiver might be the best depth on the whole team, to the point where Deuce Alexander hardly gets talked about. Traylon Ray hardly gets talked about. Isaiah Hartrung hardly gets talked about. This wide receiver unit with Caleb Cunningham, Winston Watkins, and those freshmen knocking on the door to push you will be really good. I did not expect Deshaun Stribling to be on this list, but he belongs on this list because of the talent that he has. And he has a chance to be really good if you think about it. All right. So thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we are the front door of Ole Miss. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show, and it helps keep everything totally free. Your support means the world to us. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on all the rapid changes in college football's landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hotty toddy. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.